Okay, hi everyone. Yes. Thanks for having us, having me here. So let's see what's the outline for today. I'm going to talk about the OpenAIRE research graph that maybe some of you are familiar with. Then I'm going to move on to the Foods of Science classification and the Sustainable Development Goals classification and how we integrate them and plan to integrate them in OpenAIRE. So, the OpenAIRE research graph, in case you don't know, it's a collection of metadata describing objects in the research life cycle and relationships among them. So it's based on open science principles. So we're working always to make it, of course, it's open, complete, duplicated, transparent, participatory, decentralized, trusted, all the good adjectives. Let's see. Okay, so we start on the right side, which are the type of research products that we have: publications, datasets, software, and other research products. And there are subtypes within them. They're linked to organizations from affiliations, and also they're linked to projects, from project participation, and again from projects to organizations. We have the data sources, and then moving more, we have the funders, substreams, and so on. This is kind of a simplified schema of the entities. Okay, so at this point, we have 24 funders fully integrated, about 80,000 data sources, 3 million projects, 140 million publications, 300,000 software, 50 million research data, 7 million other research products, and we are working on growing even more. So our users span from content providers, publishers, funders, institutions, research infrastructure, policymakers, and so on. So we try to create features that satisfy all of their requirements somehow. This here is the supply chain or the pipeline of the OpenAIRE research graph. So starting from the left, we harvest data from a bunch of sources, enrich them with metadata and relationships and from other sources, and then we deduplicate them so that records that are the same are all merged, however keeping the metadata from instances separate, so we can keep identifying what we got from where. And then they go through a text mining system where they are enriched with relationships, for example, publication project links and so on. So the inference system works on the textual metadata and also on footnotes, acknowledgements, and so on, and abstracts. Then there is the final cleaning step to do pipeline cleaning, and then we expose this to the outside world through either the platforms that you see at the top, or using statistical analysis. We have two services, the OpenAIRE Monitor and the Open Science Observatory, when one can view metrics and indicators for all the different stuff that's on the graph. And this is a list of our services. I will talk about the ones that are relevant for the presentation today towards the end. Okay, let's go to the first classification system. So why do we need it? In case it's not clear. So the number of scientific publications is growing like crazy. I think some paper, unfortunately, I don't have the citation in my mind, show that every 17 years, the whole corpus of scientific publications doubles completely. So we have the need for policymakers, funders, publishers, scholars, companies, everyone, to classify it according to Foods of Science, so that it can be organized and used in search engines and for discovery, for monitoring purposes, to examine the evolution of trends and identification of new emerging fields, for evaluation, so that policymakers and funders can redistribute the funding allocations, see if there are any research areas that have been neglected, and so on, and for recommendation systems. So our FOS classifier is called Sinovo. The reference is here. You can see it I will upload the presentation. Let's see how we build it. So before that, let's talk about the taxonomy that we use. So we have 3 levels. The first 2 fields of science levels are based on the OECD disciplines, fields of research and development classification scheme. And then we extend these 2 with the science metrics classification labels. So that would be level 3, which we have manually linked to level 2 of OECD. Okay? So some examples from the taxonomy would be like level 1 would be natural sciences, level 2 physical sciences, level 3 optics, or social sciences, economics and business, and then economics, and so on. In the end, we come up with 6 level 1s, 42 level 2s, and 174 level 3s. So how do we build it? So basically, we construct a knowledge graph, which we use for the inference when we get a new publication. The intuition is that a publication mostly cites, thematically related publications. So first we create venue-venue connections. So it is a multi-layer graph that is populated by exploring the OpenAIRE research graph, the publication metadata. The first version of the graph, we started with a time span from 2016 to 2021. So for every publication, we retrieved the publishing venue, so where it was published, and the venues, the publishing venues of its references and citations, and then created edges connections between each. And of course, we also deduplicated the venues, so we don't have any issues with that. And then the next step was to create the connections between venues and fields of sciences. So we originally used the science metrics classification that links venues to fields of science, so to level 3, and then we added the multi-layers. And then we used label propagation to fill out the rest of the graph. I hope so. So now what happens in the end? We have a knowledge graph that links venues to FOS levels, okay, 1, 2, and 3. So when we get a new publication, we use the referenced venues, the cited venues, and the publishing venue, and our knowledge graph to classify it into up to level 3 of FOS. Okay? What are the pros of this approach? Well, you need very little metadata, so just reference the citations and where it's published. You can classify a publication immediately from the first day it's published. You can reevaluate the labels in the course of time as more information or human curation enters. It accounts for multidisciplinarity, so there's actually quite a few venues that we find are attached to different FOS levels, so which is great. And you can classify in multiple levels of detail, so very high level, FOS 1 down to FOS 3. Some of the cons are that there is constant updates needed. Very few venues have a label at the initial graph creation, which means that our label propagation and whatever assumptions we make there are extremely important on how the knowledge graph develops. And also that it cannot be used in text that doesn't have citations or references. So it cannot be transferred to any type of text without additional work. So what we're working on now is to create a human-curated publication level-based data set. So we can have, we're not so much reliant on the initial classification. And then we'd also like to, we're also working already on extending the FOS taxonomy to levels 4, 5, and 6, using community detection and neural topic modeling. and we want to use the lower levels in order to be able to identify emerging or vanishing topics. Because level 3 is still too aggregate to get little topic fluctuations. And this is what we're working on. Okay, moving on to the SDG classification system. Why do we need it? Well, at least partly societal priorities are set by the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and there is a need for policymakers to classify research according to SDGs for monitoring, evaluation, and policy making, see how we're doing towards the 2030 goals, if we're all going to die together or what's going on. So we see the SDG classification system as the first step of a three-tier approach. So the first step is classify publications according to SDGs. The second step will be extract which way the research is trying to affect the SDG, so that would be the claim. And the third step would be assess if it's actually accomplished, so if the SDG was actually helped. That would be evidence. So we're working on all three, and today I'm presenting the first. These are the Sustainable Development Goals. You've seen them probably many times. Okay, so how do we build it? So first we build a silver corpus of keywords and key phrases using an iterative technique. So we start with the per SDG key phrases and key phrase combinations that you can find in the data set in the citation there. Then we collect articles by matching the keywords to the title. Then for these articles, we go to the abstract and extract keywords again. We take these keywords and match them to titles again, and then take these abstracts and so on and so forth until the sets kind of converge and there is no more useful additional information, but also until the person who does it is very tired. They want to leave Athena Research Center, so we just have to stop doing it. So then we have, we call this the silver corpus. If someone has a gold corpus, please share it with us. And then we use this to train different learning models. So to catch more than keyword matching. So we tried a bunch of stuff, and using human curation, we found that what worked the best is the guided LDA topic modeling and birth-based classifiers. So what do we have in the end? We have an SDG classification system where the algorithm is an ensemble algorithm that uses keyword matching, one guided LDA topic model, and two birth-based classifiers. And the classification system uses the publication title and abstract to classify a publication to one or multiple SDGs. The thresholds for the classifier are very high, so we keep all the SDG matches. Okay, so how do we integrate this to the OpenAIRE research graph? Well, right now it is a bit more manual. So on the left side you see for the FOS, and on the right for SDG. So what we did as a first step is we extracted about 13 million publication metadata from the OpenAIRE research graph, put them through Sinobo, and that allowed us to enrich their metadata with the top 2 triples of FOS level 1, 2, and 3 per publication. Then we applied whatever data transformation was necessary to plug them in the research graph again. For the SDGs, similarly, we extracted 10 million publication metadata from OpenAIRE and enriched them with all the SDG matches per publication, and then plug them back in. And now we started working on fully integrating the classification systems in OpenAIRE, which would happen in the circled part of the pipeline. So after the duplication, where our inference system kicks in. Already, you can go and see some of the results. So we have OpenAIRE Explore, where you can see at the bottom the Sustainable Development Goals in fields of science. You can browse by them, or you can browse the research products by all sorts of different fields and then go see the classifications. For 13 million, so for about 10% of the publications right now. On the right with the green, I have, it's a picture of the monitoring, OpenAIRE monitor. So the OpenAIRE monitor will build dashboards for research institutions, funders, and research initiatives with data that already exists in the OpenAIRE graph. And we create a bunch of indicators so they can follow, metrics and indicators, so they can follow the research activities, their performance and impact and so on. Before 2023, we will show FOS and SDGs over there as well. So it will be nice for an institution to be able to see its research, which field it encompasses, and which SDGs it targets. Okay, and lastly, it's not related to FOS or SDGs, but we have a Digital Humanities and Cultural Heritage page in OpenAIRE, where you can see different communities included, and maybe you find it of interest. And that's it. I finished.
Okay, thank you very much, Ioanna. And I would just like to ask for some question from the audience.
Maybe I'm done. What do you mean by venue?
By?
Venue. So it's
oh, sorry, it's the journal, normally the journal, but it could be like a conference, for example, as well. So for these purposes, it's just journals for publication.
How it is reflected in these graphs?
How what?
How it is reflected in this end result in the United Nations Development Goals, right? Get the connection between these two parts.
Right. So if, for example, let's say I have a publication that's published in Journal of Economics, let's say, and then it has citations in, so it's in the references. There are articles that are published in other journals. So this would create links in the graph. Sure. And then there's other publications that cite my publication, and there are also.
Yeah, it's clear. What is not clear is that you also calculate the supporting of these development goals.
Can you please speak up? I cannot hear you so well.
Yeah. So one part was that you create this graph, and the other part was that you calculate the supporting for the United Nations development. Sustainable development goals.
Yes.
So how these two parts are connected together. So the end you get the economics journal support 80%, the other journals support 60%. This is the end result.
We have two classifications, right? They are separate.
Yes.
One is the fields of science based on the venues. Reuse of the venues classification, and the other one is the sustainable
development
goals classification. They are separate, right?
Yes, they're separate.
So they're
not related.
Okay.
Sorry. Sorry if that wasn't clear. Yes?
Have you seen how well does it work for humanities? Because I was just, I'm not sure if I'm looking at the right paper, but I was looking at this where they present the results, and I was just wondering if you use citations and so on, and it's well known that it's not, that there are no good algorithms to extract humanities citations. So I was just wondering how well does it perform for social sciences and humanities?
You mean so citations, we get them from the metadata of publications, right? So when you say, so
you don't extract them.
We do not extract them, no.
So then you're only relying on publications that have that metadata?
Yes.
Yes.
But I did not know this was an issue, so can we discuss this later a bit more?
Yeah,
thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Yes?
Another question. There you mentioned venue identification. So if it's in journal or conference or whatever, they are sometimes abbreviated, they are sometimes not, or translated into different languages. So how do you do the identification?
I will call help from the audience. Sotiri, are you here?
Yes, I am here, but I cannot hear the question at all.
How do you do the journal deduplication?
Through abbreviations and the ICCN, and we basically, from Crossref, the venue name comes with abbreviations. So basically, we create a mapping from the full name to abbreviations, and we keep this list for the inference time. So basically, when I'm trying to infer a new publication, I get the venues and I set them to my abbreviation list, which is basically a lot of venues. I cannot remember the exact number now, but basically the main key for this application is the abbreviation, if that's clear.
Do you use a specific tool for parsing the citations?
I cannot hear you at all.
Do you use a specific tool for parsing the citations?
Did you hear?
Do we use a specific tool for citations? Is that
To parse the citations.
Yes, we do. From Crossref, and we basically parse these data dumps with our own tools, and we extract the citations.
It's good to have a friend on the phone, especially.
To follow up what Sylvia was asking about challenges or the problems that the fields of science workflow poses to the humanities. Because the quality of the data in the humanities, metadata at the level of publication is significantly lower than in other sciences like STEM or something like that. Just because, firstly, because of for multiple reasons, but in general, we are lagging behind because of the publication schemes and so on. So then it needs to be checked empirically, of course, but it's a safe assumption that the level of the number of journals that are available in the sources that you aggregate, and then they have the disciplines, is just lower from the others. And to some sources also they are not aggregated as much in OpenAIRE because OpenAIRE is growing and your providers are growing, national providers and so on, but it's a long way ahead before the humanities are as present in OpenAIRE as other publications. It's just not a critique of the solution, it's just that how it impacts the humanities in a different way. So it's not a first, well, it might be a very reliable solution for some parts of the science, while for the humanities we constantly just asking this question because it is obvious for us that we suppose it wouldn't, this solution wouldn't come to our mind because of the quality of metadata on the level of the journals. Just a comment more.
Is it the metadata of the journals or the metadata of the publications?
Metadata.
Because we use the metadata from the publications. So if they are under, we should definitely evaluate, and it's very serious. If it's the metadata of the publications, that would be surprising.
You mean, but you use the
is it that
the disciplines that are attributed also to the publication? Let's say there is an let's say there is a metadata that there is a paper on history in a journal, which is an ethnology journal. Right, so the journal has ethnology as a discipline, it has ethnology, right? But the publication within this journal has history. Do you use this history?
Yeah.
It might be a keyword. You use it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
And then you use both the journal the whole journal classification and also the publication classification.
No, we use the publications themselves. They're classified only in the output. In the input, it's just we start with the venue classification, and this is propagated. So we have like a training data that propagates through the graph, and then it goes venue to venue.
Yeah.
Right. But the publication, there is no metadata of the publication used besides where it's published and who references and who they cite.
Okay.
But if we can talk later if you have some references on if there is like a gold set of journals, so we can see like what coverage there is in OpenAIRE, if there is a source that should be harvested that we're not. I mean, we're always looking to improve. So if anyone has any recommendations, I mean, I would ask Sotiris what is the coverage of humanities, but it's difficult to distinguish between the lack of representation between data in OpenAIRE and because of smaller production, because bigger papers are produced and books and so on. Definitely something to think about. Thank you. Yes?
Sorry, I asked so many questions, but
please.
it's a follow-up to my question that in humanities there is a specific thing that most of the publication appear in national languages, Greek, Polish, and published by not professional publishing houses, but institutional kind of temporary publishing houses, so libraries, universities, and so forth. That do have coverage of this kind of publications in OpenAIRE.
So we don't limit somehow the input, right? So if as long as we can find citations and references, we don't decide. That's why we call venue and not journal. So if somehow the library here, the Czech library, for example, it shows up in different things, it will be a node, and we don't restrict that. But I think in the first 10 million publications, I don't know how much coverage we have from non-journals. So Thierry, maybe do you know?
I think that the first publications that OpenAIRE has is only from journals and conferences. So and maybe books. I don't know from libraries. If that was the question, because I cannot hear you. But journals and conferences are
journals and conferences in the first group. But Sophie, it's true that it doesn't have to be. It could be any type of venue, right? As long as we can find.
As long as we can find reference citations, yes. But the exercise, this exercise was journals and conferences.
Okay, and this is language agnostic, correct?
Yes, because we do not use text, so in language, as long as we can find reference citations.
Thank you. Yes?
Have you tried experimenting with subject classification based on the text, on the full text of the publications?
Yes. I don't know why we... Sotiri?
Can you repeat the question? Was it
yes.
about...
Did we try using subject classification using text? And why did we choose against
it? Many abstracts are missing, and if you search recent literature, yeah, you can find the third bullet, overlapping vocabulary. And we are utilizing text now for the level 4 and 5, because we are extending our hierarchy to levels 4, 5, and 6. And there we utilize the abstracts to perform topic modeling and to generate more fields of science. But for the first 3 levels, we did not utilize text at all. But we will utilize it for the latter levels, 4, 5, and 6. If that's answers your question.
Okay, so I guess it seems better for lower level classification.
We utilize the text in the lower levels of the hierarchy.
One request maybe from the second classification. It was very complex. Do you have is there a citation because for the fields of science there is a nice publication for the Synovo, but is there some publication that describes in detail the workflow for this?
We're working on one, but there isn't right now, but we'll make it happen.
Okay. And I will finally pass the word to Agnieszka. She's raising her hands. So Agnieszka, please.
I stop. Okay.
I wanted to ask you a question because I typed and I found your OpenAIRE website you showed us, and I was wondering how I can download all the data. I mean, titles.
I have a slide. Wait.
But the postmark is there. Is an OpenAIRE.
Oh, nice.
So there we have, there's an API and there's also different dumps in Zenodo.
Great. I need to type.
Like you're doing it right now?
No, just type.
Your campus is in OpenAIRE, Agnieszka.
Okay,
So,
great.
and you can check it cross-reference or something.
Yes, I can download more. Because I see 144 million of publications. It's quite a lot. Nice, thank you.
There is also for a long time a question in chat, and I will ask Anya to pose that question from Nanette.
The question is from Nanette. How are publications, scientific outcomes, and raw data linked / tagged to the digital humanities or cultural heritage category in OpenAIRE? You can see.
Yes. Well, there is. It says there's the name of a. If you go to the website, you'll see that there's the name of the curator who did the links. And so I can. It's better to see it from the documentation than from which answer it. But someone did the job, and you can add more. You can help us with that.
Perfect. Thanks. I'm checking whether there's any other question, but it seems probably not. So thank you, Ioanna.
Thank you.
Thank you.